Welcome to the Men After God podcast, where you will be challenged and encouraged as you pursue God, achieve success, and raise a thriving family. Join your host, Dustin, and his guests on a weekly journey to grow as husbands, fathers, and men after God. Here is your host, Dustin Alley.
All right, guys, welcome back to another week of the Men After God podcast. It has been an amazing journey to see the lives that have been impacted from the stories that have been shared, the messaging that has gone out in our Facebook community, the content that we've been able to develop and deliver to people in our coaching program thus far. And honestly, God is working through Men After God in such a way that we are seeing relationships transformed. And between husbands and wives, we're seeing husbands and fathers being impacted for children, and God is just doing such a great thing. And I want to thank you as listeners for being a part of it. If you're one of our founding members or one of our Patreon subscribers, I want to thank you for contributing. And obviously to anyone out there, I'd ask you, please say a prayer every time you hear a podcast that God just continue to use this and bless this work. This week, I've got a friend of mine named Stephen Miller. Stephen, I met years ago at a conference called Idea Day. And the network that brought all that together and stuff at this time has ceased to exist, but the camaraderie and the impact it had will be felt for generations to come. And Stephen had a fantastic role in getting all of that off of the ground. What I love about Stephen, and I've watched his journey over the years from afar, is his entrepreneurial spirit, his desire to first and foremost glorify God in everything that he does, and to see the gospel propagated to the masses. And he really is a local church pastor that focuses on his area. And then again, he's got some quality YouTube videos out there on his site and things, amazing preaching that you will be blessed by if you tune in. And we'll get you that information at the end of the show today. But without further ado, Stephen, thanks for being here, man.
I mean, I think we should end the episode right there with that introduction. I mean, unbelievable. I appreciate you saying everything that I sent you to say. You nailed it word for word.
There better be a royalty check in here somewhere, okay?
You didn't miss a word that I said, so that was good. It was
right.
Really good. No,
That's awesome,
it's
man.
great to be here. And I was thinking about this. If the only thing that came out of the Idea Network was us being able to do a podcast together, it's all worth it, right? So I'm thankful for this connection. I'm thankful for what you're doing. Men After God, I remember it seems like, I don't know how long it's gone now, but it's been a few months where this was just an idea. It was like, hey, we're going to do this. And now here we are. And I know there's been many episodes. So thank you for.
At the time of this recording, and to all our listeners, I think, we record ahead. At the time of this recording, we're probably 20 some episodes in. And Stephen, the team that makes Men After God happen came together like a month to a month and a half before we launched on Father's Day of 2023.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And God is just, we've increased listeners, and it's been amazing to see. I really appreciate you recognizing that, man. But let me tell you, brother, your work at Heritage, let me rephrase, God's work at Heritage, because I love his saying you have, it's his church and he's doing a great job with it. Something like that.
Absolutely. Yep. That's it.
And it's been great to see. And so now you're, now this is, I told him, we were talking before we got on, to all our listeners and you guys watching on YouTube. I told him before I got on, and then I said I would share this on the episode as well. First off, I thought Stephen was younger than I am. And for you that are listening, I know it might be hard to believe, but I'm actually 35, and Stephen is a little older than that. I thought he was younger than I was. And then obviously, if you don't know Stephen went on a health journey and is just in such a better health state right now. It's amazing. You look great, man. You really do. You got any marathons coming up? You going to do some running or?
No, never done any marathons yet. I feel like pastoring is like a continual marathon, but no, it was interesting because I thought you were a little bit older, and so it must be it must be.
I'm going to call that wisdom. You saw the wisdom in me. That's what it was.
I did. I did. It definitely It must be the pressure of hosting a podcast ages you. I guess it's
That's it, man.
I will say I appreciate the compliment. I am 40 years old, and that is something that when I first turned 40 was hard for me to say. I think any man.
We lost him there. Well, I tell you what, guys that are listening right now, Stephen has just popped off of the recording. And I don't know if we're going to edit this or if we're going to be able to. Hey, he's back.
I'm back.
All right.
I'm back.
So one of the things, Stephen, I'll tell you, and our listeners, we are authentic. We are real. We're not going to edit that out. Like that just happened, and that's life. We're going to keep pressing forward.
That's like one of those things you do to see who's like really listening, right? So we got your attention. That was all planned. Now that we have your attention, we're going to say the really important things. Okay.
Absolutely. So this is how you make $1 million right here.
Anyway, I'm 40 years old, and I know, I'll tell you, as a man, that was like a really like bittersweet milestone because, you know, I feel like when you're 40, there's a lot of different research, but they talk about like 40 to 50, that age is like sort of a really prime age for your career, for, you know, making money and all those things. Yeah. But it's just hard for me to say that. They're like, oh, I'm 40 years old because I feel like I'm not. Yeah. Basically what I'm saying is when I say that, I'm not young anymore. That's what I feel like I'm saying. I'm not young. So.
You know, the number may not reflect the youth, but definitely the mindset does. I think that's something going for you. I love it, man. And so let's talk about being 40, man. You've got some experience under your belt, bro. And we were sharing some of that with me beforehand. And I want you to share with our guys here, because as a man after God yourself, that title just represents a man that is pursuing Christ with his life. And it came from, again, just being a man after God's own heart, like David. And I know you've been doing that for, according to you, just since the Stone Age. And so I just want you to share some of your experiences in life and tell us about your family. You have a wonderful family. It's great seeing you all serve Jesus there at Heritage. Let's talk, man. Talk to me about how you got your family and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, so I've got two boys, Marcus and Miles. They are 9 and 11. And my older son, he just entered into 6th grade, so middle school. So that's a whole another level of interesting that we're dealing with. And then my wife and I, we've been married for 19 years, and we met. Her name is Becky. We met in Bible college. So I went to college in California. She was there as a student. And it was great. We became friends at first, and then she just couldn't resist me. And so finally I gave it, other way around. And so
she just kept chasing you.
She wouldn't leave me alone. And I was like, you know what? Fine. Okay. I'll spend the rest of my life with you. Okay.
If I have to.
And so we've been married we've been married 19 years in December that we've been married. And, God has us in a great season. And, I'm thankful for that, because I don't take that for granted, because there's different seasons in life, but we are in a great ministry. We're seeing God work. And one of the best things about this is, and this is not every guy, but I have the privilege of not only, being married to my wife, but also serving with her and working with her. So, that's a great thing. That actually is a real positive thing for us. And our kids are doing well. And I think it's one of those things. I was telling a young man, I tell young men this all the time. I said, there comes a point where you go from having a job to having a career. And it's sort of, there's a shift, right? That's good. I feel like at 40 and being the pastor here at the church I've been here 3 years now, I'm like in the prime start of my career. Like I could see myself being here 20 years, retiring, and this is my life's work. So with that sort of in mind, it puts us in a really great season, because we feel like we're not looking for the next thing. We are in the thing that we're going to be in, maybe for the rest of our lives, if God wants that. So family's doing great. Love my wife and love my boys, and excited for what God is doing here in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, up there at Heritage Baptist Church, man. I love this statement you said, like not looking for the next thing, because I'm not far behind you. And I definitely, I think I still feel that tug and pull. And Stephen, we can get into a theological discussion on it if you want. I've not studied it out as best I could, but I had someone relate that to gluttony to me. Oftentimes when we hear gluttony, we think of it going after food and just always wanting more food. But he said at a heart level, it's just wanting more in life and more in life. And at what point do you say, okay, God, what is it you want for me, and being content with what God has for you? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go pray on that one, because being an ambitious, driven guy, like that's definitely something I can see myself struggling with. And speaking of driven,
no,
go ahead.
I would say that's a good point you bring up, because I just want to mention one of the things I feel the same way at times, because so I have this phrase that I say to myself. I don't know what's original with me, but my mind.
But we'll trademark it. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It is mine today. My mind thinks in phrases. So like if you if we ever went to lunch, or like we ever had a coffee, I just have all these like phrases that just helps me. So like it helps me to sort of manage life.
Well, this is going to be in our show notes, phrases. So
yeah, in this is to be content but not satisfied. And it's interesting because the Bible calls us to be content, right? But I don't have to be satisfied as in where I'm at as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a pastor. Like I can want more as long as I'm content with whatever God gives. So
that's good. I like that.
You know what I mean? Like, so I want to have 1,000 people come to Heritage on Sunday. Right. We're going to keep pursuing and keep moving forward, because we're not satisfied with where we're at in reaching our community, but I'm content with whoever comes on Sunday. And so like, it's just sort of that balance, right? Where, I want to make more money, but I'm content with the money I have. And there's other ways of it, but I feel the same way that you just laid out, because it's always like one of those things where it's like, well, I want to change the world. That's like what I want to do with my life. And so, but at the same time, I also don't want to push forward and get ahead of God. Yeah. And so that's a constant struggle and balance I have to remind myself of. So anyway. So
absolutely. No, I love that. I love that we got to that. Again, to talk about the ambition and the drive that you can have. And you said, I want to change the world. I want to impact everyone with the gospel of Christ. That's who was it? Former president or founder of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell.
Jerry Falwell.
He called students to have a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah,
and the BHAG is what he called it. Yeah,
BHAG.
And that's a thing, man. Like one of our things we talk about at Liberty is reaching 6,000 people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And some of our listeners, man, you may want to grow a business that makes 8 figures a year, and you're supporting your family, retiring your parents, and different things like that. I don't think it's wrong to have those. And so, Stephen, I want to ask you this, just on the same line of thinking here. When it comes to being content but not satisfied, pursuing after the extra things, right? The more, if you will, I think, and just my own reason in my own heart is I'm not pursuing it unbiblically, unethically, and sinfully. And as long as I am pursuing it in faith to the glory of God, I feel comfortable being driven and ambitious in that way. But the moment I step out into immorality or unethical behavior or mismanagement of finances and things of that nature, now I'm really starting to lean into the gluttony, the sinfulness of that. Does that make sense to you? Do you agree?
It does. It does. My job, my career, I'm a pastor, right? But I think this can apply to if you're a business owner or if you are, raising a family, and wherever you're at as a man. I'll just use my context as a pastor. So I remember I was sitting down at breakfast with a couple pastor friends, and I am not shy about putting myself out there on social media. Right. We put videos out. We put, recap videos. We're always promoting. It's sort of in my nature. And I remember one of my pastor friends, we're just talking, and he says to me, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to build my own kingdom or focus on myself. And I told him, I said, it's interesting you say that, because I hear that a lot. I don't want to have the wrong motives for what I'm doing. And I told him, I said, I've been in ministry for 20 years. I've never woken up one day and said, how can I build my own kingdom? Right? I've never thought to myself, how can I make this more about me? Right?
I can't imagine having that thought. And if you're a guy out there that's in ministry that has that thought, get out of ministry.
Right. I can never. So I think sometimes it's this. It's sort of we create excuse why we don't want to be great or want to do something great, because we are so worried about doing it for the wrong reason. And I think honestly, what I come to is that that sometimes it's not about not doing something. It's about checking why you're doing it. And so for me, and in that same conversation I had with him, I said, my problem is not that I don't trust God to build the church. It's that if God doesn't do it, I'll rely upon myself to do it. So I don't ever sit there and go, man, I can't build this church unless God does something. My problem is, no. Okay, if God doesn't decide to build it, that's okay. I'll figure out how to build it. And I said, the most dangerous thing in my life is to be successful without God.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of guys that they're not worried about. Their problem is not that they're not successful. It's that they're successful without God. And so I think I have to constantly check myself to make sure that I am not orchestrating. I am not planning. I am not, though we want to be organized and plan and see we have goals. At the end of the day, it goes back to content but not satisfied. As in, we have a dream and a goal to do great things, but at the end of the day, whatever God wants we'll praise him for that. Because at the end of the day, he's sovereign. So, it goes back and forth because I've never lacked confidence or ambition. I think my problem has been I've always at times had too much confidence and too much ambition. And that's just as dangerous, just as dangerous.
Absolutely. I can relate to that one, man. And but your confidence, your ambition, there's some God-given things there that, again, tempered under the Holy Spirit and in line with God's direction and will, again, you have used and many have used for the advancement of the gospel and the growing of the kingdom. Let's take a step back for a minute to Idea Day and Idea Network. Wonderful network. Loved it. Josh and them did an amazing thing. You guys did an amazing job with what you founded and what did well. And, many of us were sad to see it gone that were a part of it. But again, excited about the new things that have come from it. I think Ben Shetler's got a new work going there. I can't remember. Future Church was the name of it.
Future Church.
And so a lot of stuff going there. That's great. But if there hadn't been some ambition, like you guys wouldn't have started trying to put on that conference to host hundreds of pastors and have a national network, international network to impact. And then that network, guys, if you're listening to this, the Idea Network was for pastors and ministry leaders. But there's there's always a business side to that. And Stephen, you were integral, according to Josh, of getting that up and off the ground and everything running. And so without that drive, ambition, those types of things wouldn't happen. What's going on at Heritage? God's using you there. And so that's guys in business and everything. If we're doing it by faith to the glory of God, like let God bless it. And I love what Steve said here, and be content with his blessing, but never satisfied, and go after more. Bro, I agree.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good stuff. It's a good reminder to have this conversation because I think any man desires to have more, be more. Any man, no matter where you're at. If you're a college student listening, or if you're a business owner, like I said before, or you're a single guy, or maybe you're just a guy who's married with a family, and you got a steady job, and you're just 9 to 5. There's always a desire, and I think there's something within men that desire more, and I don't think God is against that at all in any way, shape, or form. I think we have to just make sure that we say, okay, God, whatever you do, I'm okay with, and I celebrate what you are doing. I don't complain about what you're not doing. And that's helpful, I think for anybody. So.
And then I want to go two directions here. I just want to make a statement that pursuit, when two pastors talk, often I think it always comes back to thinking of the ministry and the things of that nature. Guys, God may be not calling you to ministry. God may be calling to use you to grow a business, to be employed somewhere, to develop the funds, to financially support, to prayerfully support, as a lay person in a church, to be a part of his work in that way. And so don't think that, you have to be a pastor missionary or something for God to use you in that great way. Let God use your life as he's called you to be a man after him.
Yes.
Oh man, I said all that and I lost my train of thought, Stephen.
No, I could jump. I'll jump in and say.
Yeah, jump in. Let me see if I can remember.
One of the things, I love that because one of the things, I have two boys. God has called me to ministry, and that's what he's called me. That doesn't mean he's going to call my boys, and whatever they do, we just want them to do it for the glory of God. Last week, we went to a party, and it was one of my boys' friends' parents, and this guy's a Christian. He's a small business owner. He owns a pest control company. And we pull up to his house. And here in Northern Virginia, the houses are really big. So where I pastor in Loudoun County, Virginia, Loudoun County is the wealthiest county in America. So doesn't get any more wealthier than here. And so it's a very interesting place to be. And there's a lot of money here. And so it's not uncommon for us to pull up to a big house here in Loudoun County. And we pulled up to this guy's house, and the square footage of the house, Dustin, I looked it up later, was 9,500 square feet. And like I walked into the front door, I felt like I was in a hotel lobby. Like that's what it felt like.
My goodness.
And as we pulled up, we sort of all remarked, we were like, wow, like this is a big house. And I told my boys, I said, boys, I said, and I said the man's name. I said, he loves the Lord and he follows Jesus, and Jesus has blessed him and his business. And I told him, I said, see, boys, when you honor God, no matter what you do, God will bless you. And so I didn't want them to look at that differently as opposed to, well, that guy, that guy's only got that because he's in business, he's not in ministry. No.
Right.
He is serving in his church. He is loving people. He's giving, and God is blessing him in his business, and he's reaping the benefits of that. I think it's important that Christian men understand that. There's nothing we say here. Now, let me say this too. Because we live in the wealthiest county in America, anytime we talk about money at Heritage, it can get a little funky, right?
It's a little dicey. All right.
Sure. So what I say is, as I say, listen, God is not against, and we see this in the Bible, he's not against you having money. He doesn't speak against us having money. What he speaks on with money, and we say this at Heritage, is two things. Number one, how you get it and what you do with it. So how you get it and what you do with it is important to God, right? And so to me, it's a beautiful thing when I see a Christian businessman who is being blessed in his business and he's able to enjoy his life and take care of his family. As a pastor, I'm thrilled for that. I don't envy that. Absolutely. I'm not like, oh man, because I'm glad for him. I'm glad that God is called him to that, and God has called me. And as a pastor, we're doing fine. I'm enjoying my life too, and God has me. Yeah. And so I think it's important for us as men to point out, especially Christian men, to point out success and connect it to God when applicable. It's important for our kids to see that and understand that and know that success is because of God. And Absolutely. I love being able to do that in my kids' lives at times.
Man, that is so good, because I was just having a conversation with a man yesterday, and we were talking about anytime in Christianity when I speak and say something about achieving success, there's an automatic thought, I believe, at least in me, of, okay, is this a name it and claim it guy? Is this a prosperity gospel guy? Is this guy saying, if I have enough faith, I can, do this, that, and the other? And so absolutely not, just to be clear. But the problem that we've had in my life growing up in the South with opposing the prosperity gospel is we almost went to the other side of the ditch, or the other side of the road in the ditch, and created a poverty gospel.
Yes.
And said like, well, no. Because what's the saying? It, Steve, when it comes to the like pastor's pay or something like that, we'll keep him poor if you keep him humble, something like that.
Exactly.
And so, and just in business and everything, I remember growing up, driving by, there's a mansion in Churchill, Tennessee. There's a mansion there on the corner of a road next to Tiny Giant, one of the most redneck backwoods stores you could ever come across. And there's like this plantation mansion, and driving by there, and like comments being made from parents of, they're rich, they're, this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, well, they're not following God. They should be giving all that away, this, that, and the other. And, I think it's so good what you're doing with your boys. And you're also helping them and our listeners right now with that awful sin of comparison.
Yes.
It would be easy, Steve, for me to roll into a 9,000 square foot home and immediately go, wow, I'm nothing. I'm not got anything going on in my life. I am garbage. I'm going to go start a pest control company. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so, but we have to purposely and intentionally put that underneath the Holy Spirit. So no, I'm content with what God's called me to. Now, listen. Yes. I'm not going to lie, Steve. If God called me to a life to have a 9,000 square foot home, I probably wouldn't be that upset either.
Sure.
But I'm content with what God's called me to.
Yes.
I want to talk about your family some more because of your drive, your ambition. And I'm going to use the term success and what you did in the Idea Network, your work and the churches you've been at, what God is doing at Rosedale with your ministry there. That comes usually with a hustle and a grind.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. I know for me, in the past 5 years or more, I've had to work at tempering some of that because I've neglected it at times. Yeah. Has there been a time in your seasons of ministry to where you look back and see yourself, we'd use the term balance or out of rhythm? I hope we didn't talk about this beforehand. I should have, but I assume you're in a good place now. Like how you've grown from that to where you are now and have a good rhythm with your family and ministry balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So I've never been out of balance. I actually have perfect balance.
Thank God.
So
I'm so glad to finally
we can move
you.
on.
We've been looking for you.
I'm here. Here I am. Yeah. Here I am. I'm the one with perfect balance. Absolutely. No, of course. And so, yes,
That's
and
hilarious.
I will say too, I appreciate you checking in on me, Dustin. Like I'm doing good. And but it takes time.
Really puts you on the spot here too. So.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's all good. So one of the things two of the words that I use often when it comes to what you're just talking about is the words initially and eventually. Initially and eventually. So sometimes we try to maintain balance. Some people, there's authors that would say that's a myth, right? Balance is a myth. We're never, there's one author who wrote a book called Choose to Cheat, where sometimes you have to cheat on your family for work, and sometimes you have to cheat on work for your family. And so it's not a matter of balance. It's about saying, yeah, I'm going to be intentionally out of balance. So I'll speak to that. I'll say that sometimes the worst place to be is to be out of balance and not know it. That's the worst place to be. Because
that's good. Yeah.
To think you're in balance and you're not, that's going to be really tough.
Let's pause. Hang on, Stephen, right now. Hang on. Let me pause you real quick. What are some ways if a guy is, again, he doesn't know it? What are some indicators? I know one I'm thinking of. I'm just interested if you're going to say the same thing, like who or what is going to be able to help him most identify that?
Yeah, I would say the thing that comes to my mind when it comes to that is you have to listen to the voices that love you, that are talking to you. So if you, and I often say that when I was a youth pastor for many years, I would say to the teenagers, listen to those that love you. Okay, well, who loves you? Like, well, God loves you and your mom loves you. So if you're a man in a fast-paced, entrepreneurial, or you're just doing a lot in your life, listen to those that love you. So if your wife is telling you like you're working too much, right? She's not going to tell you. Yeah, right. If your kids are saying things like, like Dad, like it seems like you're never, and kids will say it in their own way. They'll say something like, Dad, do you have time to like play with us right now? Right? That's sort of their way. And as a man, I've got to hear that. And that's where I think sometimes we deceive ourselves because we think we have balance because no one's saying anything. It's interesting. One of the things here at Heritage is we try to thrive in a culture of feedback. And I remember reading one time that if you're a leader and you ask for feedback, you always get it. Always. So if you lead something, you say, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Very rarely will someone say, no, we have no thoughts. And the reason why leaders always get feedback is because sometimes leaders are the last to know what's really going on because they just sort of like are focused and tunneled and like in the zone. And they think because no one's saying anything, everything is great. So when they go, does anybody have a problem with this? And like all of a sudden, wife's like, yes, I do. Or because I'm glad you asked. And so I think that's where when you are out of balance, the most dangerous place to be is to not know that. Now, I would subscribe, and maybe someone has a different philosophy in this. I would subscribe that I think I would rather put more energy into be intentionally imbalanced than try to remain balanced. So that I'm going to have conversations with my wife. For example, in my line of work in pastoring, one of the big things is preparing messages. My day off is on Friday. And so there may be a week that happens where I can't get to the message like I need to, and I'll need to take that some time on Friday. I will communicate that imbalance to her. Hey, Becky, I've not been able to get to the message like I need to. I'm going to have to take some time. And what I'm telling to her is, I know I am going out of balance here, but I know that I'm going out of balance. And that's the key. Man. And so I think that's important to make sure you have an awareness of that. I don't know if you can maintain a constant state of balance because of just the ebbs and flows of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
mean, like you're joking around of like, of course I'm in perfect balance. Like I've never met anyone who seriously says like, no, I'm good. Like I've got all my time divided and I execute it exactly to that every week and nothing ever comes up that throws my week out of balance. I wouldn't understand that. And so one of the things I've learned, Steve, and this is what we teach with Men After God and our book coming out in early spring of 2024 is, that it's important to have, I use the term framework, but at least, guiding principles, you have something that you can go back to and say, okay, am I in balance, right? Because if we just throw that term out between like work and family, it's very general, but we're a lot more specific in that. And so we've got a 5-pillar framework that we teach, and it's deepen your relationship with Jesus, devote time to your family, develop yourself, deliver value to others, and do nothing for Jesus. Focusing on that sabbatical rest. And of course, we alliterated it because we have a Baptist heritage, and that is what it is. But nonetheless, well, we take that 5-pillar framework. We do the book. We have the coaching, and it's all about helping guys utilize those 5 pillars and put that into their lives. And through the coaching, we teach, you got to check your calendar daily, make sure you're looking at that, get ready for your day. And then you need to kind of do a midweek checkup. I'm like, hey, it's Wednesday, it's Thursday. Where am I at with these things? Like, how's my relationship with Jesus? How's my time with my family? Because I know for me, my week is more heavy on the front end. I'm like you. I take a half day Friday and then I do a full day Saturday. So my week on the front end is pretty heavy. And most of the time by Wednesday, Thursday, I'm like, I need to make sure, did I schedule a time with my family this weekend? Is there sports this weekend? When am I seeing my children? Because it's been a day or two. And, every now and then it happens. But you hit on a very important thing of communicating that, because that communicates the worth of someone else to say, hey, listen, I know I'm doing something that's going to impact us and I don't want it to, but I can't get around this. And we just making sure they're involved in the conversation. Yes. Yeah, we have to be realistic. I think sometimes as men, we want to live in this sort of like utopian society that's like, okay, I'm going to get everything right. You're not. Like, let me give you some good news, man. Amen. Okay, you're not going to get everything right. Okay. Yes. You're not always going to strike the perfect balance. Even I'm a pastor, and I'm supposed to be the example, right, of like balance. But if you're going to be ambitious, if you're going to be successful moving forward, it really comes down to communication. I started saying earlier about initially and eventually, and you mentioned about me pastoring the church here. So I'm 3 years in. This was a church revitalization. For those that are listening that may not know that, basically the business, if you want to call it that, of the church, the operations of the church was struggling. So in business terms, there weren't new customers coming in. There weren't good processes and systems. And in the church world, we would call that revitalization. So it needed to be revived. Right? The business was failing. The church wasn't going forward. And so initially, there was a lot of imbalance.
Like, we spent a lot of time at the church. We spent a lot of time remodeling. And I didn't sort of like put off my family, because we never do that. But there was definitely more time spent focused on the church initially, with the idea that what we're doing will get us to a place where we can have a little bit more intentionality and a little more balance eventually. And so now, like, this is how you know you're a leader, is that if you can't move things forward, if you can't make things better, then you need to change what you're doing, right? Insanity is, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So there was never, like, when I took over the church, there was never like I'm just going to work 90 hours and we're going to, go to the church. If I'm still working 90 hours after 3 years, there's a problem. There's something wrong.
Absolutely.
So as a leader, I should be building. And so as a man, I think that you have to give. Can I say this? I'll say this.
You can say whatever you want, Steve.
Thank you. I was going to say, I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, no, you say it, man.
I think this sometimes, like, look, if you're a man listening to this podcast and you're trying to figure out how to have like balance in your life and be a man after God, like, you're doing so much better than a lot of other men out there. Like, just by listening to the podcast and wanting to be better, right? So like, can I just like give a little hand clap and just say, like, good job? I say that sometimes when I talk to people, like counseling. They'll come in and they're like, man, this is really bad. And I'll stop and say, no, wait a minute. The fact that you're in a pastor's office talking about your problem is better than like 90% of what everybody else is doing. So like, good
absolutely.
job, right? Yeah. So I think that we as men, we have to cut ourselves some slack a little bit and say that I may not have it all right initially, but as I learn, as I grow, as I develop, as I listen to every episode of the Man After God podcast, as I buy the book.
He gets royalties now.
Right there. Okay?
Yeah.
What happens is eventually you begin to learn and grow as a man, and you are doing things eventually that you couldn't do initially. It's like discipleship. There are people at Heritage. This is what I love about Heritage. There are people who have no idea, like, where the book of Hosea is. Right now, they don't. Right. But if they're willing to come to church every Sunday and connect, and over time, they will learn. And I think it's interesting. And I want to say this to the men. I said this to our men's group last night. I lead one of our men's group. I said to them, look, why is it that we are patient to learn in every other area of life except for Christianity? And we feel like if we don't know it all right now, then we're not worthy of being a part of it. And there are some, I'm telling you, there are some men right now that you need to hear, look, just because you don't understand it all and you don't get it all, and you're like, I'm trying to be a good father, I'm trying to be a good husband, okay, great. Initially, you're gonna make mistakes, but just stick with it and grow, and eventually, man, you might be on the podcast talking about how you grew as a man. I don't know, but
absolutely, man. Yeah.
That's my heart, man. That's my heart for men.
I love it.
I love it. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. And we just have to. It's not perfection; it's progress. And so that's how you're going to grow, and you're going to add value to other. Like one of your pillars is to add value. You're going to add. I'm telling you. You're going to add value to your family, to your children. And this is something for me I've experienced personally. I'll say it this way, and I'll make sure I say it clear. You will probably add more value to your business, your family, your children in the process of growing than when after you have grown. So it's when they see you growing. So like when my kids see me, catch me on my knees by our bed, and I'm praying in the morning, and they catch me for 20 seconds as they're going to go brush their teeth. I may be adding more value to their life in that moment than I am if I preach a 45-minute sermon to them. Because what they're seeing daddy grow. They're seeing daddy change. They're seeing, my wife is seeing me. And I'm not perfect. I digress, Dustin, but I get real passionate about this.
No, man, like I'm getting as much value. You talking about value? I'm gleaning from you right now. I'm loving it, and I know our listeners are too, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm watching our time. We're approaching that 40-minute mark, man. I don't like to take it too much further than that. So you've been amazing, Stephen. Thank you so much for coming on here. I hope to get you recurring and get you back on here again because I know you've got so much to bring. I want you to do something for me. I want you to share about Heritage Conference 24. Because I know it's coming. I don't know all the details. I'm sure you've got more than I do. I want you to share about that. I want to know how our guys can get in touch with you, either get in touch with you or at least just follow your content and stuff you've got coming out social media wise. And then I tell you what, let's give a 15 years ago, Stephen hustling, grinding in life. I think you said your kid is going into 6th grade. So how old's your oldest? So let's say, 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years
Okay, 11. So 11, 12 years ago, you're about to have your first child. You're hustling, grinding at work and stuff. You've learned so much. What would you tell that guy that's at that same place in life, who's moving into his career, who's wanting to see godly success in his life, and what would you give him to have that godly success? We talked about that earlier, of having success without God. I wanted to ask, and that was one of the things I lost my train of thought on. I wanted to ask, what does it look like to have success without God? And because of our time constraint right now, I'm going to just answer it real quick. And Stephen, if you have anything to add on to, feel free. But I think success without God looks like a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of people praising you, but the people closest to you don't know you, don't like you, or don't care for you. And I think that is, just in a big general sense there, a success without God, because godly success doesn't exclude the family he called you to love. So Stephen, Heritage 24, information about you, and then talk to that guy who's getting ready to enter life.
Yeah, sure. So Heritage Conference 2024 is happening August 19th and 20th, 2024, here at Heritage. It's basically a 1.5 day ministry leaders conference. We hosted it for the first time last year, had wonderful attendance. Many ministry leaders came from all over the country. It's completely free to come to. We don't charge registration. There's no strings attached. And all we want to do is bless and encourage ministry leaders. And we have a heart for that, to try to encourage pastors and ministry leaders. And so you can register for that. And we are working on all the details for that coming up. But Heritage Con 2024 is going to be a great time. You're going to learn how to be a convictional leader, how to overcome the fear of man, how to identify the 5 stages of church advancement and where you are. And there's a number of other things that we're developing, and it's all for you. No strings attached, no agendas, no sponsorship things. Matter of fact, we even have several people coming who represent ministries. I think Man After God. I think we talked about you guys coming as well, and I'm excited to have you guys.
Yeah, we plan to be there.
We're not charging them anything to come. So there's no strings attached here, and we're just glad to be able to host and encourage ministry leaders. That's August 19th and 20th, and Heritage Con. And if you want some information about that, you can DM me, which you can find me on Instagram at Pastor Steve 82. That's the year I was born, Pastor Steve 82. And then if you want to look up any of our church stuff, that's a lot of times where I'm at. You can learn more about me. Our website is heritageva.church, heritageva.church, and that'll get you to all the social platforms, all those different things. And last thing I'll say is, when I think about 15 years ago where I was, it's crazy because I didn't know what life would bring. And I think I would say to that guy who's there right now is that that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's no guarantees of everything working out the way that you hope it will. I've experienced that firsthand. where what I thought would happen or how I thought life would go has just not. Now, God has been gracious and sovereign. And that's the one thing I've learned is that I would say to that guy to trust in the sovereignty of God, to know that God is in control and he has a plan for your life. And all you need to do is just be faithful to him, knowing that you can't control anything and you don't know what tomorrow will bring. But one thing we do know is that God is sovereign. He's in control. And so rest in the sovereignty of God, that he knows what he's doing. He knows how he's moving, and he will bring you to the place that he wants you to. And as I sit here as the pastor of Heritage, I cannot help but just praise God's great sovereignty and his total control and providence in my life. And so I would encourage you to learn and grow in God's sovereignty and trust that each and every day as he moves you in your life.
Man, Stephen, wonderful. Thank you so much, man. All right, guys, you have been blessed today. If you listen to this, Stephen brought so much for us. I really even hear his heart of content, but not satisfied, even in the end of his final remarks there. Just such great stuff. I can't wait for a Heritage Conference coming up. I know we're going to get Stephen back in. If you're interested in being a subscriber for Men After God, go to patreon.com/menaftergod. You can sign up there. And then don't forget, we do have a book release coming out early spring 2024. Be looking for that, and find us on Facebook, facebook.com/menaftergod podcast. If you'd like to be a part of our growing community, facebook.com/menaftergod. I'm sorry, facebook.com/groups/menaftergod. You'll find us there where you can connect with guys like Stephen, who I'm going to be inviting to it personally right after this, and then also any of our guests and other people in there that just want to help you achieve success with a thriving faith and family, because every Christian man deserves the opportunity for success and strong relationships with his wife and children. We'll talk to you next week, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Men After God podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and keep up with the show by following us at facebook.com/menaftergod. You can also reach out to Dustin personally at dustin@seekconsulting.us with any questions or for coaching on being a man after God. Until next time.